For rifle shooting, I use two different bipods. They're both Harris, they're both Series S. The longer one, this is the 25C model. The shorter one is the L model. Measuring from the pivot to the base of the rubber foot in the fully closed position, it's about 13.5 inches. There's three sections to the legs. When it's fully extended, it's roughly about 28.5 inches from the pivot stud to the base of the rubber foot. Quite easy to fit, quite easy to set up. I use this one, the longer one, the 25C. I use that for when I'm sat down shooting. I find that the length when prone is just that little bit too high even in the fully closed position. But I find this quite good for using when taking a sitting shot. The smaller one, the L series, I use that usually in the closed position for prone shooting. With both of them, there's two leaflets covering instructions, details of accessories, hints for using, and quite a few pictures and quite a bit of a write-up. Quite handy for when you've never used a bipod before and you're not quite sure what to do with it. Pretty comprehensive. To extend the legs, all you do, just pull and eventually it clicks into position. Very easy. Very little resistance. To release them, there's a small catch above the thumb wheel, above the thumb screw. You just press that in. I have found though, if you extend the leg just a little bit, pull on it, it's easy to push the button in and the leg returns. If you try to push the button in without pulling the leg down just that little bit, it's a bit more awkward. Quite a simple, easy to do thing. With this one, I have heard there's some notched versions, but on this one you can either fully extend till you hear the click, or if you pull out slightly to whatever desired length you want, you might have some uneven ground. Just tighten up the thumb screw and that puts it the length you want. As you can see, slightly different to the fully extended. You can adjust it to just about anywhere that you want to. Leave the screw fully open and that way you get the fully extended legs. On the base there are some rubber feet, some pads of rubber running the length of the base. That helps to protect the wood on the stock. Nice handy feature. When you tighten everything down, makes it very stable. A nice little feature on these bipods is there a small stud at the front or the rear, whichever way you look at it. For this you can attach a swivel, and if you want to you can use a sling at the same time. You can see the pivot, the attachment for the spring, and it's quite a firm feel to the spring. When it's open it'll take quite a bit of movement to try and knock it off the legs again. I've had no worries with this at all. And you can see underneath the mechanism to attach the bipod to your rifle. There's a thumb screw there. It's all on pivots. Underneath, where the square hole is, roughly where the stud is going to attach to, can see the jaws sticking out. Some little pins, don't know if you can just make them out. One each side pointing inwards, that fits inside the sling swivel. And the idea is you unscrew the thumb screw all the way out, you push this part through, but also these little ends of the jaws at the end, you squeeze them together, and you can see the jaws there just opening. The idea is on the stud underneath the wood of your stock and the rifle, you just place those little pegs into the hole, little bit of a wiggle, little bit of a fiddle maybe, and then you just turn the thumb screw to tighten everything up. And what that does, as you tighten it up, it pulls the jaws back through the hole, and it also tightens up the jaws, the pegs through the hole in the swivel stud, gives it a fairly tight grip. And although it's not quite the same as actually being fitted to the rifle to show you, it's gripped that stud quite firmly, and coupled with the fact it's resting on the stock, it's a nice stable fit. To release it, thumb screw, just release, and as it all starts wobbling about, the end of the lever part there, whatever you want to call it, the jaws, you squeeze them together, it opens this side up, and it's not quite coming out, so I need to unscrew a little bit more. Enables it to go through, open up a little bit more, and away comes the stud. Little bit fiddly perhaps when you're first starting to fit it, but once you've done it a few times you can almost do it with your eyes closed. Quite a simple fitting, a little bit complicated to try and explain, but I don't know if you can see there, the thumb screw and parts that move, the parts you squeeze together, and on the other side the jaws opening and closing. This is stopped from falling through the slot. There's a small ring there, like a key ring effect, and when you look at the features compared to some of the other bipods, it's quite nicely made. It's heat treated steel, it's coated, it'll stand up to a bit of abuse, wear and tear. It's something that'll, when you've paid for it, it'll last and it'll do the job that you want. I certainly wouldn't go shooting without these now in many circumstances. They help to stabilise the rifle, give it a steadier shot, and it also gives you a bit of time to think about the target, whatever you're shooting, to concentrate that little bit more, and to be, what is most important, more accurate. Fixing to the rifle itself is quite simple. Just remember to unscrew the thumb screw, push the jaws through, pinch them together, and then with a little bit of fiddling locate onto the stud, tighten down the thumb screw. Just as it's getting tight, I normally give it a little bit of a waggle just to make sure it's seated properly. Tighten up and ready to go. The legs are very easy to drop down, and I haven't mentioned this, but this is actually a swivel version as well. So with the rifle on this bipod, the ground's slightly uneven, it can be tilted to keep the rifle level and upright. All in all, a nice little addition to a rifle. When I thought bipod, and I thought buying something that's going to give me a good service, be good quality, I thought of Harris. And so far I'm very pleased with the two bipods I've got.